old clock radio. Most people don't bother with them nowadays. I mean, sometimes you can't pick up an FM signal. Certainly around here it's very difficult. And the AM signal, there's nothing on there. Most people use mobile phones to wake up to. So if you see them at boot fairs and you're interested in getting parts for electronic projects, always buy them. This one, it worked on AM only. FM was given up, and you know, I mean, nobody's going to bother with it. So it's useful for people that are into electronics like us because it's packed full of bits. So here we go. These screws have already been undone. So what we've got here is we've got the battery holder. Now that's under. We need to use that. Right. Speaker, 8 ohms, perfect for projects. I mean, this is going to cost you more, well, maybe a couple of quid on eBay or something, yeah. So you take those bits out. It's always got idea to keep the little clamps. I mean, 2 quid and all these components. Of course, one day they're going to either be thrown away or people like me are going to end up buying them. So sometimes they're glued in, so good idea. Get a sharp knife and cut around there. Try not to stab the speaker. It's only paper and it wouldn't like it very much. So they're fairly robust. One of the problems with a glued in speaker like this, they're glued in because it's assumed the vibrations of the speaker might make the thing fall out. Oh god, there we go. This being a difficult one, but usually it's possible to get them out. There we are. Now if you're unfortunate, you rip the cone off, in which case that is always dodgy. Sometimes if you pull them out when they're glued, the cone comes apart. It's just, well, it's a done deal, that. So anyway, we're talking about no soldering projects. So we've got here the 2 wires connected to the speaker already. Undo the knot, and then you can use wire strippers to strip the end ready for connection into your circuit. This is my method. I've got an injured near side front hoof, so I can't really, 2 fingers are not really working properly. Normally you can grab the thing with your fingers and yank it. There we go. So that's a couple of quid for a speaker that usually work, that normally go wrong. And the most expensive part is this. I mean, these are getting rare because they're using switched mode power supplies these days, and you know, they don't last very long really. They go wrong. So we're going to take this one. This is these little transformers, usually 9 volts, 9 to 12 volts or something like that. There we go. Take that out. So this all goes in your spares box. I mean, the number of clock radios that turn up at boot fairs that nobody wants. It's amazing, you know. Often you'll see them, and there's this 2 or 3 quid. 2 quid for one that's not working, and 3 quid for one that is usually. So the important point is to get as much of the lead as you possibly can. Don't throw anything away. Right, so that is probably about 8 quid on eBay. And the wire on it, interestingly, completely shockproof. There's no way you can get a shock off that unless you cut into the cable. So that can be used, either sell that on eBay, or you can use it for a power supply project. So that's incredibly useful. What else do we have? Okay, we've got this battery holder. You know, they charge a huge amount for those. Meant for a PP3 or other. I mean, this here is a 3-volt supply, but it uses the same connector as a PP3. So we take this bit off, take the chassis out, the printed circuit board I mean. Printed circuit board removal. Right, now obviously you could just cut it off there, but one good thing about taking the printed circuit board out and getting access to the bottom is you can cut more of the lead off, and that makes connection to any circuit project you're building a lot easier. So there we are. That is quite a reasonably, cut the aerial off. That's the FM aerial. Say goodbye to that. Just well, I suppose a piece of wire is useful. It's better than having to buy it, isn't it? Get sort of that. There we go. Hot snot. Pull that through. Well, it's the aerial, but it's a piece of wire, which if you stuck for a lump of wire and you don't want to buy it, and all that, you got it there. So this is where the battery is connected to. So you don't have to use just that and that, you know. Undo the knot. Undo the knot. I mean, I'm giving something away here. I mean, I have been buying these radios and selling bits and pieces to people I know and knocking bits and pieces out on eBay that I think, oh, don't use that, so I'll knock it out on eBay. So that is, for £2, this radio cost me, you've got a battery clip, a speaker and a transformer worth about £8. Now there are other components which involve desoldering. There's these capacitors. I mean, in spite of capacitors being unreliable, very rarely come across one that refuses to work. This bit is useful. This is your AM and antenna, ferrite rod, ferroceptor, ferrite rod aerial, and so we can just break that off there like that. Break that off. That's the tuning capacitor. So that is a ferrite rod aerial which can be removed. So I'm going to stop it now. There's other things you can get if you want to desolder. Is the 5K ohm potentiometer and switch, and the tuning capacitor. However, it is an awful lot of effort desoldering these, and they often come out broken. In fact, sad fact that when these are all useful components. You know, this is called a super het radio, super heterodyne, and unfortunately getting these out is more trouble than it's worth because they usually disintegrate. Now it's an interesting point. There's an awful lot of videos about television license. I am one person who doesn't want to cooperate with the television licensing authorities, you know, because of the issue of child abuse and one thing and another, and endless. Don't want to get into the politics of it, but you'll often hear people say, oh, a television is built as a device to receive and it can't transmit. That's not actually true. Every device you have in the home that actually receives a signal off air, satellite system, AM radio, your television, if it receives a signal off air, it's going to be a supersonic heterodyne, super het for which is invented by, I think, Armstrong some time ago, long time ago. So the super het is the actual standard, the radio that we use these days. Now, one of the things, I don't know which one it is, but one of these components, probably that one, is called the local oscillator. Now, it's quite complicated. There's a lot of maths involved. Frequency comes into the aerial, and then you've got another frequency added to it, and then mixed in with it, a mixer is in there as well. And then you get a resulted third frequency, which is either a result from the two. So you add them together or subtract, and there's loads of stuff on YouTube. Now, the important point when it comes to people saying, oh, television doesn't transmit, that's not actually true, because you've got the local oscillator inside, but it's in one of these cans, you see. And my dad, when he was alive, said, yeah, they probably do have television detector vans, because a television does give off a signal, but they can't have very many of them. It would have to be extremely expensive. Now, the local oscillator in a super heterodyne receiving device, television, radio, whatever, gives off a radio frequency, but because they're inside these cans, it's blocked off. So any electronic device or receiver or detector, as they keep going on, that would be employed to detect a television would be hugely expensive. It would be something like picking up, it's like one of those satellite things, you know, when you're looking at stuff, space, you know, a dish that they use to look at astronomy, pick up radio waves. That's the kind of technology, because but the important point is that a radio set will give off a transmission of sorts. Okay, that's that over and done with. So ultimately, if you want, I mean, look at all the components inside this now defunct clock radio. I mean, obviously, if you're into slide switches, you can desolder those. These are diodes, capacitors, various things. But I've taken all the best bits out. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next one.